Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Optimal Health Program. I'm Dr. Chris Calapai, and we're going to talk to you today about a wide range of different things. A couple of great studies on exercise and cognitive benefits, how to get into ketosis faster to help to burn down fats and bring down weight. We have a lot of topics, glycation we could talk about, allergy testing, Lyme disease, hypertension, the underlying causes. So as I like to do, and I call it an open forum. In the 35 years or so that I used to go lecture at the Marriott Hotel in Uniondale, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, I would call it an open forum. So would go there, obviously without notes, sit there with patients, stand up at the podium, and we'd have anywhere between 200 to 300 people and just answer questions. And we'd cover so much ground. And I've always done that on the radio program, and now, of course, want to do that on the podcast. So you can have questions on a variety of different things. The idea is to explain things to you, show you what testing is important, and how to learn about your body and maximize your outcome, your health result. In so many cases, and I wouldn't be the first person to explain this sort of thing, traditionally doctors will look at a couple of different tests, 2 or 3 pages of things, and say, well, yeah, you're fine. And they don't have the ability to go beyond that to be able to understand why your body's doing what it's doing. And I've always described that anywhere between 20 or 25 pages, or the blood test that we do, and we're able to understand more accurately what your thyroid's doing, or if you have heavy metals on board, or your cardiac risk. So allergy-wise as well. So we do both blood work as a screening and skin testing for allergy as a more accurate final test. For heavy metals, we do blood. But that's only going to be a recent exposure to the metals that haven't been stored yet, so the urine test is much more accurate. So we'll talk about all of this information, and of course, we love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 888-420-9272 if you'd like to call in, 888-420-9272. And of course, we'd love to hear from you via text or message or email. A lot of emails to the website over the past week. Thank you so much for that. Of course, as we talk about the website, it's up on the screen now. The phone number to the office, 516-794-0404, Garden City, and the website, drcalapai.com. Okay, let's get started.
Let's go.
Any interesting questions online here?
Oh, the chat's just ready to go. I see you, Stork Deliveries. It's an interesting username. Are you delivering babies? I'm curious. Chat's ready to rock, though.
All righty.
Go. Oh, we already have a question. Intermittent fasting.
Yep.
They say, my husband, it works very well for me. I gained weight. Please explain.
So intermittent fasting alone is not necessarily a complete answer or a complete recommendation. So when people want to lose weight, we talk about cutting down carbs, doing exercise, looking at hormone levels, because if they're low, you really can't burn the fat and lose the weight. Looking at vitamin and mineral levels. And with exercise, it has to be, for some people, 45 minutes, where others might be able to get it done in 30 minutes. Men typically have higher hormones like testosterone, which is a great fat burner, IGF-1. So it may take a little bit more work for women to lose the weight. But again, we have to understand the entire picture. The idea of doing intermittent fasting, and there are a couple of studies. This one is interesting. It talks about how to get into ketosis faster. Of course, it talks about getting your sugar or your carb intake very low, below 30 grams, sometimes below 20 grams. Some of the people that will do intermittent fasting but still eat carbs are just defeating the purpose. Increasing physical activity, fasting for different periods. Some people are good to do it for 8 hours, some people 10, some people like to do it longer. It just depends upon what works for your body. So it's not as though everybody responds to the exact same thing, in part because most people have different parameters behind the scenes that are, controlling the fat burning. That's why we have people come in to get the big blood test done. If we need to get your thyroid into a better range, or DHEA, or testosterone, or IGF-1, Sermorelin, then your body is poised to get the great result. So there are always things behind the scenes that could make it hard to get the result you expect.
And then just a follow-up from that intermittent fasting comment, they're just asking, do hormones in general between women and men differ on what we need?
Absolutely. So just to talk about testosterone, men need levels around 700-800 to get their best function, and women need levels in and around 40 or 50. And some will do fine at 30. But I tell people, when we look back at where you were 10, 15, or 20 years ago, let's say you're a teenager, your hormones are all in a great range, your body's doing beautifully. You can run around, go crazy, knock yourself out, and you feel wonderful. And your weight's better, your cholesterol's better. As you start to drop the hormones, your body can gain weight. You don't feel as good. You're not getting those hormones to all the receptors to make every organ work and every tissue work the way that it should. Of course, estrogen, progesterone are much more specific to women. But IGF-1, the active component of growth hormone, is important for men and women. When you look at what happens with a decline in the IGF-1, and most doctors never test for this because they don't think about it or know about it, you have changes in your sleep. Your sleep is not that good because your neurotransmitters are not being made at good level. And your hair, your skin, your nail changes, your memory, your focus, your ability to burn fat, burn sugar, endurance and strength with exercise decreases. So these are facts of what that hormone does, just like thyroid has its own cluster of benefits in DHEA and testosterone. So I see very, very many people that are multiple hormone deficient because they've gone into their 40s and 50s, and these things are either trickling down or they're dropping precipitously. And we need to walk them back to where they were 10 or 15 years ago. So that's sort of the hallmark concept of anti-aging medicine, getting your body to function like it did when you were younger because you're putting your vitamins and your hormones in place where they should be. So it's understanding everything about your body and then putting everything in place. And there are a lot of people that will tell me, I don't get good results after the exercise anymore. I'm tired. I don't feel energized. I don't see the result. Well, because the hormones are low and the vitamins are low. So vitamins are food for your cells. You need to get them on board so your cells will have all of that. And hormones are chemical messengers to tell your cells and your organs and your tissues what to do. And exercising in the face of low vitamins or hormones, you're just not going to get anywhere. But if you put them back on board, and I try to give people a visual about this when I'm sitting in the exam room with them, and I say, let's say this one room is one of your cells, and you and I are workers inside the cell. We're making protein sequences and doing all sorts of great stuff to get that cell to function well. We're sending out information outside the cell to get other cells to do similar things. If you're not doing the exercise and your hormones are low, you're not getting anywhere. If the hormones and vitamins are good and you do the exercise, you're flooding your cells with oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones to get great results from your cells and get great results from the organs and every part of your body because you're delivering everything. So just taking vitamins doesn't prove or create delivery. The exercise does. Taking hormones, if they're calculated in the right fashion, and the same with the vitamins, the exercise is massive delivery. So that's why you get such a great result.
Yeah, we have someone in the chat just saying, I've always felt crazy when my hold on, where did you go? When I told my friends that I was exhausted and my brain didn't work right after doing our morning jogs. Now this makes sense.
Yeah, it's just depletion. So I see depletion in all ages, all different, groups of people, populations. You have younger individuals who are really hyper-metabolic, teenagers, and they run and play ball and work out like crazy. And sometimes they're wiped out because they've just burned through their nutrients and their vitamins. And the older population needs higher amounts of vitamins because they're not absorbing as well. Maybe they're absorbing 30% or less. So we have to look at that. That's why we test the vitamins in the blood test, see what their activity levels are. And then when we see those levels and we see the nutrient levels or vitamin levels, we correct accordingly. For some, we'll go much higher than others. And then we recheck to make sure they're in the perfect zone and you get your best result. And again, same with hormones. So I've had pro athletes that are wiped out because they're doing so much activity. Baseball players, football players, bodybuilders, etc. Your body needs to be fed. And the more activity you're doing, the hardcore stuff, the more nutrients you need.
That's wild.
I mean, once you think about that, and I explain to patients, they're like, oh, yeah, of course. But sometimes it just takes a simple explanation of how it works and what we need to do to correct it.
We got someone in the chat saying maybe you could have helped the Yankees in the postseason last year.
I would have loved to. Yeah, they needed a little bit of something.
A little something.
It's amazing. You get all the way there, and then they just crash. Someone said something very funny once. In the beginning of the season, the Mets are like the Yankees. They're doing great, but by the end of the season, they crash. And then someone said the Yankees start off slow and they pull in strong, except last year, of course. But I have a good friend that I go to the games with, Bob. Bob's dad, who's a Major League Baseball player, also is a scout for the Yankees. And he used to sit around as a kid in the dugout, the locker rooms with Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra. His dad was great friends with these guys and with Billy Martin. And he has signed baseballs directly from these guys. They did it in front of him.
I may have cornered this guy at your
cleats.
house.
Yeah. He saw him at my house. He has cleats and this and that, all this stuff from those guys. He has a couple of rings. But he can tell some amazing stories. And a few of them were, at batting practice where these guys were just crushing the ball. He's running around the outfield like crazy, trying to catch the balls, had to go up in the stands to get some of them. But, it's like a wonderful thing. Imagine being a kid and you're in Yankee Stadium with these epic heroes. It's pretty amazing.
It's another world.
So, yeah.
Especially
I like
at that
to go
time.
to Yankee Stadium on Mondays because there's no traffic going from Long Island to the Bronx. And I'm due for a few more, Yankee shirts and some more knickknacks. I usually get, polo shirts. I've gotten jerseys, signed jerseys and stuff. I have a good friend, Larry, who used to work for Steiner and was a partner in Steiner, and I would get signed jerseys, Brady and all these things, but I got a Mickey Mantle jersey, which is pretty wicked. And, so need some more polo shirts, maybe a couple of cool hoodies, and, keychains that have a little press the button. You got a light on the keychain, so knickknacks.
They only went up 20% from last year and 20% from the last year.
Yeah. I can't imagine where they are now, but.
Now I drop my chicken finger, and I'm like, that was a $20 chicken finger.
Yeah, the food is not inexpensive there. There are times, when I've had friends that come along and, I'll say, yeah, I'll buy it. Some I'm saying, wow, how much is that for just a couple of hot dogs and, whatever, burgers and beer? But, the comment a few years ago is when they left the old stadium, and I was at the last game of the old stadium, because a very good friend of mine, Carl, who used to pitch for the Yankees, got me tickets and got me signed baseball from all the guys. It went from being pretty affordable to take, a family of four to a game. Any of the games, I think now Mets or Yankees, and all of a sudden it's like, wow. It's almost impossible,
Yeah. Someone's got to pay for those contracts.
I guess, something therein. I had the opportunity a while back to buy Aaron Judge's cleats, game-worn cleats. My friend Larry showed them to me, and it wasn't inexpensive. Now forget about it. I mean, it's just...
That was your chance.
I had my chance. They're out of reach. So...
Well, we got some questions now, Coach. Coach Calapai
Yep.
says, pro athletes seem to bounce back from injuries way faster than the rest of us. What kind of advanced recovery treatments are they using these days?
Well, they're using a variety of things. They're using nutrients, they're using vitamins, they're using vitamin IVs, which we do a ton of. Vitamin IVs get lots of antioxidants on board. Vitamin C is great for recovery. In a perfect world, and you can't really get to the athletes unless they come in on their own, stem cells and PRP are spectacular for healing. Peptides are spectacular for healing. But that's not something that's easy to get the team to agree to.
Right, because there's so much money on the line.
I've had lots of pro guys in all different sports would hear about me through a friend of mine who would help them get their insurance. And then I had a buddy of mine who played for the Bears, big guy. And he would come in and get him on vitamins and IVs and such. And I'd go out to dinner with him. I've never seen somebody eat so much food in my whole life. And Tony Siragusa, rest his soul, used to go to dinner with him. Same thing. 5 appetizers, 5, 6 entrees. But remember, these guys are giant. And they're working out like crazy, heavy lifting, all day long. But really sweetheart. Really great person. Sad that he's left us. But a lot of these guys, yeah. I mean, the calorie intake is staggering. Staggering.
Yeah, I've heard some stories of Babe Ruth and what he would eat on a day-to-day basis.
Oh yeah,
Have you heard
he was
that?
just and he wasn't a bodybuilder. They didn't train back then like that. But yeah, he was a wild man.
I think it was
Burgers
2
and
porterhouses
dogs
a
and-
day, beginning and end of the
Yeah,
day.
and lots of stuff in between.
And plenty
It's
of
just-
alcohol.
Yeah, it's like epic. Besides the fact that he was one of the greatest players of all time, he was one of the greatest eaters of all time, while being one of the greatest players of all time. I don't know anybody today that could eat that sort of way and be that good. You know,
No. Nope.
there's a quote from somebody. I don't know if it was Mickey Mantle. If I knew I would have lived this long, I would have taken better care of myself. These guys were out and about drinking and whatever.
That's a good quote. Someone's just said, it's hard to believe that Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole are in their 30s.
Yeah, that's also unusual. But you look at guys like that, and I've met Judge a couple of times. He's the most humble, nicest person I've ever met. When I first met him, I had done stem cells on one of my patients. He's a famous Fat Joe, and sweetheart of a guy. I met him in the Bahamas at another friend's house.
It's not so fat
Came
anymore.
in and he came in and as a thank you, he said, "I'm going to bring you to a game." I said, "Okay, just meet me at the stadium." I go to the stadium. There's nobody there. There's no one milling around Babe Ruth Plaza. I'm like, oh, is this the wrong day? Called me. We walked in by the Legends area, and he kind of just pushed me on the red carpet, and there's Sabathia. "Hey, Doc, how are you?" And I met the whole team, and, it was amazing. Certainly a big surprise. And some of these guys you stand next to are like, gosh, Betances is really tall, but he's lean because he's a pitcher. Severino, tall, lean, but Judge is just,
Monster.
his shoulders are like twice as wide as mine. I was like, you feel like you're tiny. But the nicest, most humble guy. And then I went to one of his charity dinners in the city at Cipriani, and he became much more muscular since 2019 to last year. I mean, muscular, like in shape, like workout shape. And you could see the suit was just barely containing.
You're talking about Judge?
Yeah. But, but the nicest, most humble guy, which is nice. I mean, I like that. I respect that as much or more than anything. You don't want people to have attitudes. So,
I like that little sidebar.
yeah, little secondary comments.
Sorry, we're not going to do that for the Mets or the Red Sox. Sorry. Sorry, I know it's a national show, but we have
I
a
did
limit.
go to a Met game with my friend who's got season tickets, and we sat next to the dugout, between home plate and the dugout. And you don't know how big these guys are, how stocky these guys are until they get up into the on deck circle. Now, of course, Judge and Stanton are just super giant, but the first baseman for the Mets, they call him the polar bear. Why am I forgetting his name?
Currently?
Yeah.
This is what happens.
It's escaping me. But, yeah, he's thick. He's the thick guy, too. Not as tall, but, these guys are in great shape. And all they do is work out and run around. So they're the best shape of their lives, I imagine.
No question. We got Yankee talk going on now.
All righty. Yankee talk is good. So one of the emails from the patient, Paul, was talking about fatigue. And he's not sure why he's tired. Other doctors have looked at iron, looked at thyroid, etc., and they've found nothing. Well, when you look at thyroid, you can't just do T4 and TSH, which is what most doctors traditionally do. You have to look at T3, T4, TSH, free T3, free T4, T3, T4 uptake, reverse T3 to see if there's any conversion of T3 from T4, which there really never is, and thyroid antibodies. So we pick up abnormalities all the time. The other doctors don't because we do a better test. That's one mechanism, but I try to tell people that there may be a layering effect of different causes that allows that fatigue to occur. So for sake of discussion, let's say person's got a virus, Epstein-Barr virus, and that's a very, very common cause of fatigue. And we test 4 antibodies for that, not just one. If Epstein-Barr is the cause, why is it there? So my question is always why? Well, your immune system couldn't kill it. Why? Maybe your immune cells are decreased in number. Why? Because your vitamins are low. Why are your vitamins low? Either you're not taking them, or you're taking them and not absorbing them, or not taking enough to really create your best result for your immune response. So these are all contributors to that end comment on fatigue. And some people have Epstein-Barr and thyroid and low iron. Women typically, of course, have low iron compared to men, but you see that throughout their early lives. Heavy metals can affect how your hormones work and your brain and your neurotransmitters. So there are probably 50 different causes of fatigue that we talk about, and we look through all those tests for. So that's how we do it.
Got a question here. Hey, Doc, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between that and regular hypothyroidism, and can it be reversed?
So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune mechanism where your body's attacking your own cells. Therefore, you don't have enough thyroid hormone to get to all your tissues to create the result. People typically take thyroid hormone for that. Without having the autoimmune attack, aging over time can cause your thyroid gland to shrink in size. You have less cells and you're making less T3 and T4. Your brain has a feedback mechanism where your brain sends TSH to your thyroid gland to tell it how much to make. And if you're not making enough, your TSH goes up and your T3 and T4 can be normal or then can drop down and become low. And in that mechanism, you correct the thyroid, the T3 and T4. I only use the T3, T4 thyroid. I don't recommend T4 only like Synthroid or levothyroxine because you're not getting T3. And the majority of people that I see that are hypothyroid on T4 only are still tired, and they say the thyroid's not working. I said, well, maybe because you're not getting any T3. And then we find it in the blood test that their T3 is low. So it's a delicate balance as to how to and when to intervene and to create that balance. I think that a lot of autoimmune disorders are caused by heavy metal exposure. This is borne out in literature all over the place. So I think if you do see an autoimmune mechanism and we do a blood and then urine test for heavy metals and we start to get them out of the system, you can start to see some improvement, both in symptoms and both in that balance mechanism. So it's really based upon what your blood work shows.
And then just to follow up on that, can thyroid problems cause mood swings, anxiety, or depression, or is that unrelated?
Absolutely. So your thyroid controls a variety of things. Your basal metabolic rate, how many calories you're burning. And if your thyroid starts to drop down, you can get tired, obviously. Your memory, your focus gets a little foggy, brain fog can occur, concentration. All of these things start to decrease when your thyroid or your other hormones drop. And then when we look at this and we start to create correction, you start to see that reverse. But I wouldn't say that thyroid is the only thing that could make you feel brain fog or a little out of it or lose your focus and sharpness. Vitamin deficiency will do that, absolutely. DHEA, testosterone, IGF-1 level decline will do that. Heavy metal exposure will do that. And for some people, as I mentioned, heavy metals can damage just about any tissue of your body, and that can affect how that tissue and then that creation of hormone or neurotransmitter works or doesn't work.
I've got one here. My doctor said that my TSH is a little high, but says it's not bad enough to treat. Should I be worried about that?
So we see just about every shade of color in this whole thyroid spectrum, which means that we see people coming in with good T3 and T4, and the TSH is a little bit up. I might say to that person, well, your brain's asking for more hormone. Let's see if your body can do it. So in 2-3 weeks, let's just recheck it. If your TSH is back to normal, then it fixed it. So there's this constant, like a wave, going in and out on the beach, this wave of function. So if your brain asks for more and you make more and now it's happy, that may be all you need to do. But you have to recheck because some doctors will not do the recheck. And they wait until the TSH might go higher and higher and the T3, T4 go lower and lower, but you don't want to wait too long in that case. So that's why we recheck abnormal blood work sometimes in a couple of weeks. So there are people who come in that are on thyroid with a good T4 and a good TSH and a low T3. There are people that are not on thyroid that have a low T4 and a normal T3 and a normal TSH. So the variations, are wide. So that's why we have to take a look at the picture. In the same realm, when people bring in prior blood work, if their thyroid is normal 6 months ago, okay, now there's a newer change. If the thyroid was off 6 months ago and it's still off or it's a little bit different, we look at trends in blood work so we can see exactly what, we're dealing with. and then make recommendations accordingly.
Got it. All right. We're flowing. YouTube. I see you. I didn't forget you, YouTube, even though you've been doing us dirty recently. I won't get into it. Said, hey, Doc, we're trying to get pregnant. How important is it to check your thyroid first, and what's the ideal range?
Well, it's not as though it's first. It's all the hormones. You have to check T3, T4, TSH, as I mentioned, all the thyroid panels, thyroid antibodies, DHEA, very important because DHEA helps to balance the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And the estrogen, progesterone is critically important for, getting pregnant. You have to look at IGF-1 because IGF-1 is also part of that picture. So it's not testing one, it's testing all of the hormones. Many years ago, I had a girl that worked for me who was a nutritionist, and she was a little bit older, and she wanted to get pregnant, but her hormones were just off. The estrogen and progesterone weren't bad, and the doctor was giving her a little bit of that, but her DHEA was low, IGF-1 was low, testosterone was low. As we started to correct the picture, all of a sudden, they came into a great range. She got pregnant. Wow. So it's all the hormones.
And a little off topic, but we have a question on stem cells. Not very specific, so if you're listening, you know who you are. You can comment back and clarify. But they're just asking, how many stem cell treatments does it take to complete the treatments? And yeah.
So typically when we do stem, and I talk to patients about their condition, maybe we do MRIs for the joint to see what's happening, brain scans, MRIs for the brain for people that have MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, stroke, etc. We try to assess how much wear and tear they have, because that's an important discussion. We talk about doing one stem cell treatment. Overwhelmingly, over all the years I've done this, we typically do one stem cell treatment and watch to see how much better they do. And overwhelmingly, the majority of the diabetics that I've treated over the years, it's one treatment, and within 2 to 4 or 5 months, those individuals become non-diabetic. And we track them, and whether we're testing their A1C every couple of months and looking at their parameters, of course, we get them to do low-carb diet, exercise, etc. along with that. The only people who've done second or third stem cell treatments are patients with stroke, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. They've gotten very good result with the first, and some, let's say they get 65% benefit. They want to do it again in a year. Of course you can. There's no reason why I couldn't. They're just your cells. I've had patients that come in once a year that have no medical problems because they want to have newer functioning cells in all their organs. I've had some people that'll do the IV because it's great for all your organs, and then some people will come back and do their face because they want to get that youthful appearance, with your face. So it's the same idea. When you put them into an area, they just become brand new cells of that tissue to create healthier, better, stronger tissue. So overwhelmingly, what we do is one stem cell therapy.
There we go. All right, back to thyroid. Little pivot. My ultrasound showed a thyroid nodule. I have to come back for tests. How do doctors know if it's something to worry about?
So the term hot nodule and cold nodule has been used forever. And when they do a thyroid scan, where they inject a dye or material into it, if it's a hot nodule, that typically means that the tracer goes into the nodule, and it's much less likely that's a problem, that it's a tumor. If it's a cold nodule, then it's a higher potential risk for tumor. So that's been the idea over many, many, many years. But a sono's good. Sometimes CAT scans are good. You have to add blood work into that to see if there's any autoimmune mechanism. So you look at a variety of different things.
And someone just mentioned that they've read some things about gluten affecting thyroid, and being gluten-free could help. Is this?
Yeah, there is some potential there. Your diet can affect different things in your body. I don't say that diet has to create issues with thyroid or other organs, but here and there, research is popping up talking about the connections. So we always want to look at that and see whether or not it'll make a difference in a person.
And we got someone else just saying, very annoying about what I read for thyroid. Some people say running on my bike could backfire.
Running on the bike?
Yeah. Too much cardio.
I don't think there's a thing as too much cardio, but my comment would be, if you're young and you're a teenager or a 20, 30-year-old, you're doing a ton of exercise, you're flooding your cells with all sorts of good vitamins, minerals, hormones, oxygen. Is it possible that as you get older that your thyroid decreases in production of the thyroid hormones T3 and T4 and doing a lot of activity, a super lot? You may be doing more activity than your thyroid has the capacity to keep making the hormone? Maybe. So there may be some validity to that, but we'd have to bear that out. Just like anything else, if you can only make X amount of a hormone per day and you're really burning it and you're doing crazy amounts of activity, you may not be able that moment to make the extra that would carry you through the activity.
Got it. And someone else just said, I had a baby a year ago and I've been super tired, cold all the time and losing hair. Could this be postpartum thyroiditis?
Well, it's more likely the postpartum inability for estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, IGF-1 to bounce back. It could be thyroid related too, but the blood test within that one big blood test that we do would tell us. You'd see it right there in the 20 or so, 25 pages of blood test. Also could be vitamin deficiency. So remember that when you get pregnant, you're creating this massive amount of new cells that draw from your body and need lots of good nutrients, calories, and hormones created. And then after delivering the child, your body just sort of crashes to some extent. And the hormones that were wonderful throughout pregnancy, and most women say, wow, I felt amazing when I was pregnant because all their hormones were high to create the end result. And then after the delivery, they crash and they feel horrible. And postpartum depression is a real thing, but in my mind, it really shouldn't exist, because if you give them a little bit of DHEA, give them a little bit of the hormones that were wonderful, weeks before, you just bring them back up to that nice, comfortable feeling, and they don't go through that depressive mechanism. It's all about testing the hormones throughout. Before they're pregnant, make sure everything's good. While they're pregnant, make sure everything's good. And as soon as they deliver, check all of them and see what you have to bring back up. It's common sense.
That's wild. Good to know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The lack of knowledge back in the day and how people just
And it's not even back in the day.
Right.
I talk to people all the time, and patients that come in and say, I want to get pregnant. Okay, great. Let's get your vitamins and your exercise and everything on board. Eat organically, do all the great stuff. And they do. They get pregnant and they're healthy, great pregnancy. They don't get sick. And then afterwards, a lot of them will say, I just feel horrible. I'm exhausted. I'm this, I'm that. Then you recheck their blood and say, look, your vitamins are low. Let's bring them back. Your hormones are low. Let's bring them back. And once you do, they feel great again.
Wild. That's it on thyroid, I believe. Great questions today, guys.
A lot of good info, because there are more people that have thyroid issues now than ever before. And there are more people that have heart disease and cancers and all the other things that we see than ever before. So unfortunately, there's a trend with this poor Western type diet to make people sick. And there are other things that are making people unhealthy.
Hopefully in the right direction.
To that end as well, we talk about something I put together, the vitamin pack concept, where as I look at your vitamin blood test and see where you are, understand your activity levels, all your other medical concerns, I can, with a little recipe sheet, make a morning and an evening pack and put together things specific to you, blood, and your concerns, so that every morning you open the pack, you take the vitamins that will be the best for you, for your condition, for your body. And evening, same thing. If you want to go out to dinner, take the evening pack, open it, take it while you're eating, and you're good. So you don't have to go out and buy 20 bottles of things and be all over the place and not knowing what you're getting, because I'm creating that for you, knowing the milligram doses of everything that we're doing. So, for example, the morning pack will have vitamin D with K2 in it. And vitamin D usually has to be about 5,000 units, and that's will bring people up to the 80, 90 range, sometimes close to 100, but that's where you want to be to get your best results. So because I've done this for so many years, it's easy for me to just pick and put together combinations of the nutrients. So that's one of the more important things we're doing. And there are people who want to do consults that don't live anywhere nearby. They'll call us to a telehealth consult. We'll send them a prescription, get blood work done. They get my big blood test done wherever they are. And we'll do a second telehealth visit to go over recommendations for food, vitamin, exercise, and put them right on the plan. Makes all the sense in the world. Certainly you could call the office. We'd love to chat with you about that. 516-794-0404.
On your screen now.
And as well, you certainly can call and email the website, and we'll get right back to you. So it's a great way for people, even in the far reaches, to be able to get their nutrient levels corrected.
Question on that. Someone's asking, how often should you retest your blood if you're on one of those personal vitamin plans? Do your needs really change that fast?
It depends upon physical activity, age, a variety of different things. But the way that we do it is the first blood test, see what that shows, go over it, and make the custom recommendation for nutrients, and then a month later recheck some of the ones that were low. And maybe 2 or 3 months down the road, double check. So we can prove that your levels are in a great range. But that would hold true for thyroid, that would hold true for cholesterol, all your other hormones. You want to check to make sure you're staying in the right range.
Someone just asking, saying, I've had stomach issues with some vitamins in the past. Can these custom packs take sensitivities like that into account?
Yeah, because we're using things that have no fillers, binders, colorings, excipients, dyes. And also, I want to figure out what's happening with your stomach. Because some people will say the vitamins bother my stomach or a certain food bothers my stomach. So I'd also look for the allergy picture, because if a person has allergy, then a variety of things they bring into the stomach may be irritating them. Now, allergy, just to not leave this topic for a second, you could be allergic to a food and have IgE antibody binding to that food. So you can see those antibodies potentially on a blood test, but a blood test is a little screening. It's not meant to see all your blood. So whatever antibodies are near the needle when the blood's drawn for 3 seconds to get into that one tube for allergy testing, you would see. If they're nowhere near the tube, they would show up. So skin testing on the upper arm is more accurate, intradermal, and that's the gold standard. But there are people who have IgE blood or skin test allergy. There are people who have allergy to gluten, but they don't show blood or skin test to wheat. And there are people who have no gluten, no allergy skin or blood test, but are reacting to the GMO component of the food. So there are 3 or so different ways that your body could react to those things.
Got it. Questions flooding. I see some companies advertising to me on Instagram vitamins for quote, detoxing heavy metals or environmental toxins. Is there any science behind these kind of?
There's no science to an oral vitamin doing any kind of removal or detox. There's no science to foot baths or foot pads. None of that has scientific basis. So the only technique of removing heavy metals that has probably 100 years by now of documentation behind it is the calcium EDTA IVs, chelation. We know that it binds to the metals, it pulls them out into the urine, and we can see them come out. And then beyond that, to make it more provable, if a person does 10 chelations and then we repeat the IV with the urine after it, and you compare the first urine after the first IV to the 10th urine, second urine after the 10th IV, and you see what's been depleted, you know that it's doing that job. But there's no other mechanism, whether it's saunas, chlorella, spirulina, supplements, that will do that. The other comment I have is that when people say, I want to do a detox, or I'm doing a detox, I said, well, what are you detoxifying? And they don't know. Well, I got this program online, or I went to a store, and they said, but what are you detoxifying? You can take things that make your bowel loose to clean things out, and that's a good idea, but you're not getting rid of heavy metals from that. And the worst things you could probably have on board stored in your body are heavy metals. So you have to be very careful with the sort of advertorial things or advertisements that are out there that may have no real bearing on fact or science.
Someone's just saying, doesn't our liver and kidneys already detox the body? Why would anyone need to go to these stupid detox spas?
Well, your liver and kidneys have work to do. The only slight drawback is that when things that are not good for you get into your body, and your liver's a big filter, they can get stuck in your liver and irritate your liver. And there are so many studies, maybe millions, on heavy metals talking about how they're correlated with aluminum and Alzheimer's, cadmium and breast cancer, so much. As much as you can trap those things in your organs, maybe to keep them from going to other organs, maybe, you got to get them out of your body. And the intravenous treatment is the only thing that does that. So we have to think of this on a biochemical level as opposed to a yes or no light switch like a detox or a non-detox. If you have a lot of these things that have been floating in your blood and getting into your cells over a lifetime, it will affect all your organs. Some people will realize it sooner, other people later, but they get in and they cause damage.
And to all the viewers that kind of feel like an idiot, like I do, I will just, to make you feel better, I spent probably 2 or 3 years buying pH water that did absolutely nothing for me. So, it's okay, guys.
There's another interesting comment. So as a physician in your first year of medical school, you learn about kidney function. You learn about blood pH. Your blood pH has to stay at an exact level. It can't go up or down 1 point. Otherwise, you're in really, really deep stuff. So there's an exquisite mechanism between your lungs and your kidneys to hold your pH at about 7.2. There's no such thing as drinking alkaline water to make you alkaline, even for a millisecond, much less all day. And there have been comments that I do agree with, that for people that have cancer, if you're trying to alkalinize your body, and if there were a way that outside the cancer cell you have an alkaline environment, when sugar is broken down in that cancer cells to make it grow faster than regular cells, and that's Nobel Prize-winning research by Dr. Otto Warburg back in the 30s, that sugar breaks down to lactic acid. If that gets pushed outside of your cell easily into an alkaline environment, acid going into alkaline, you're getting more vascular endothelial growth factor to grow blood vessels to feed the cancer more sugar. Bad idea. If there's an acid environment outside the cancer cell, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, alpha-lipoic acid, a variety of these things, you can't send that lactic acid into an acid gradient, and then it kind of backfires on the cell and helps to kill it. So these are things that people selling these ideas and machines and whatever don't get. They don't understand, but they wouldn't.
People are blown away in the chat.
Like, what? I spent $4,000 on that machine. We're going to get a rash of women who are attacking their husbands because of getting this and doing that. I mean,
yeah, it's impressive how people that have not went to medical school and how they could convince.
I do tell people, get a full house water purification system. Culligan and Aquapure make them, and they're triple reverse osmosis filtration, and every speck of bad thing that's in your water will be filtered out. And now every water that you use from showering and bathing and cooking and drinking, etc., will be safe.
So we have someone saying that they watched an interview with Tucker Carlson and someone else, and the guy on the program was talking about statins being a problem and causing Alzheimer's. Any comments on that?
I love Tucker. I think he's great. Very eloquent.
He'll talk to anyone.
Yeah, I like his demeanor. I like Charlie Kirk. I like Michael Knowles. I like all of these guys. And they're super intelligent. And I like that the most because they're so well-read and they're so well-spoken that I appreciate what it takes to get to that point. So statins are medications that are inhibiting a pathway at HMG-CoA reductase, an enzyme, that at some point would allow your body to make your cholesterol. Unfortunately, right after that pathway is blocked is your own production of CoQ10. So you're wiping out your CoQ10. You need CoQ10 for every cell of your body, for mitochondria, for your muscles. So people that take statins that wipe out CoQ10, they have horrible muscle aches and pains, or can have the heart become weak because CoQ10 is for contraction of muscle. And now you're using a drug to try to lower cholesterol, which may not be the evil thing that everyone has made it out to be. And you're making your heart weaker. So everybody who's on a statin, I make sure we get an echocardiogram on them to see what their ejection fraction is. And I want to look back at prior echocardiograms to see if it's getting worse. Of course, if the ejection fraction is bad, we do stem cells to put new cells into the heart to get that contraction back. But of course, we get them off the statins. And there are nutrients to use to lower cholesterol, also low-carb diet, exercise, correcting vitamins, minerals, hormones, fine-tuning thyroid, testosterone, DHEA, IGF-1. All these things help your body to burn down the cholesterol. That being said, there are people worldwide in other countries that have very, very long lives that have very high cholesterol and they don't have plaque. And this occurs in northern Italy, a region or a town called Limone, and the people have 300 or more cholesterol, no plaque. They don't die of heart disease. So cholesterol may not be the horrible culprit that we've made it out to be.
Oh, just great, Doc. Just great. Another one.
Sorry.
Someone just said, I've heard cases of sudden hearing loss linked to statins as well.
That can happen. You know, you could look up a list of side effects to any drug, and certainly the statins have a bunch of side effects. So if you're wiping out CoQ10 for your brain, that's not a good thing. You're wiping out any vitamins for your brain, it's not a good, or any organ for that matter, it's not a good thing. But it's like saying there are two different ideas or trains of thought. One, see what symptoms you have and give you meds for everything, and not really look to see if the drugs are interacting with each other or causing side effects or blah, 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 and waiting for more bad things to happen. Or in my world, learn about your body, use the more natural things that don't have side effect, don't have risk, repair your body, do the exercise, eat right, and fix things. I'm not saying I wouldn't use a medication. A person comes in with a crazy high blood pressure, I'll put them on meds until we can get that under control and change it and then get them off.
Yeah, the chat is just losing it. Alzheimer's runs in my family. Should I be more cautious about taking statins?
Yeah, I wouldn't take statins if there was a concern there. I would also look at heavy metals because there's a direct relationship between aluminum and heavy metals in Alzheimer's. I would also check for B vitamin conversion because people that don't convert B12 typically will have more issues with high homocysteine, which can affect the brain. I would do testing for heavy metals. If people start to get a little fuzzy, memory's not as good, get a brain scan done. You can get an MRI or even a SPECT scan done and look metabolically at the brain. You have to look early and intervene early. Because I can tell you in many thousands of patients I've seen with dementia and Alzheimer's that drugs don't work. Because you're forcing a drug to try to change something without fixing the cause.
I feel like we're holding on by a thread with you two, but we'll find out after today. All right.
Okay. I didn't say anything mean or nasty or
You only
bad.
said the truth, so sometimes that gets us in trouble.
Yeah.
Not our problem. It feels like statins get handed out like candy these days.
I've seen patients that said, my doctor said I should take a statin to prevent future cholesterol from going up. I'm like, well, what the heck does that mean? Your cholesterol and your numbers are all good. Why would you use a drug to treat something that's not there? Well, it may go up down the road. I'm like, well, but there's no evidence that taking that medication will reverse blockage in your blood vessel or even prevent it because there are probably 40 things that make plaque occur in the first place. High homocysteine, high fibrinogen, high C-reactive protein, heavy metals binding to the bad LDL to become a foam cell becomes plaque. Low hormones, viruses like Epstein-Barr can inflame the lining of the blood vessel and allow plaque to build up. So there are a lot of other things to look at, which is what we do.
Someone's just saying, I asked about this to my cardiologist, and he says these side effects are extremely rare and I shouldn't worry.
I don't know. I mean, everybody knows somebody who's had the muscle issues with the statins. Everybody. You know, when I go out to dinner, I'm with other people. People always come over and ask questions. And, oh, my cousin Hermie had a problem with his legs were killing him, and they figured out it was the cholesterol. I mean, I hear it all the time. It's not as though you hear it once in a blue moon. But the other worry that I have is, and cardiologists will say that, oh, the side effects are minimal. What about your ejection fraction when you wipe out CoQ10? And those are guys that exist in that heart zone. Look at the ejection fraction, because if you're on a statin and your ejection fraction is dropping, your heart's getting weaker. Fact. You know, I feel like Peter Sellers. Fact. Inspector Clouseau.
Yeah, the chat is just being flipped on their head. If I aggressively improve my diet and exercise, could I get off my statin and avoid these risks?
Absolutely, positively, without a doubt. And this is what we do all the time. I probably have taken people off more meds over time. We don't do it the first day, but by doing that, by looking at your blood work, correcting your vitamins, minerals, hormones, there are vitamins that help to lower cholesterol. Low-carb diet, you know, half hour to 45 minutes of exercise, combinations of cardio, you know, one day or weights another day, Pilates, yoga, elliptical. Do every possible different activity you can. And some people can't do all those things, but, you know, just walk briskly around the block, slow, brisk, fast. Keep changing the speed and do it for 45 minutes, and you'll get your muscles heated up and get your body to burn through whatever little sugar's there to burn the fats. Fact. We do that all the time. 37 years of doing that.
Someone just said, I've heard something about red yeast rice.
Mm-hmm. That can help to lower cholesterol.
What is red yeast rice?
Yeah, it's a component that is a natural mechanism to lower cholesterol. And then there are some Ayurvedics, you know, Google lipids and such that help to decrease cholesterol. Berberine can help. But my comment would be, it's not about a pill. On one side of the street, take the pill and do nothing else. On my side of the street, well, let's not take that prescription. Let's do low-carb diet. Let's do exercise. Let's fix your hormones, thyroid, DHEA, testosterone, IGF-1 if needed. Let's use berberine, red yeast rice. Let's use the natural, safe, without any side effect approach, and you'll get there. And without any risk.
You're getting a lot of thank yous. Thank you for allowing me to see the lights.
Talking about lights, I think I'm getting tan just by sitting here.
Listen, we have
to have the lights here because we have to look good in the studio.
We skipped a week, so he's not used to the studio lighting.
Yeah, so.
But it looks like you got a nice tan, Doc.
Well, we can show a couple of pictures.
I got them ready.
Are you set up for that? So I don't want to make this show or my conversations only about medical, nutritional things. And this is slightly off the path of nutrition, but this past weekend I went down to New Orleans, which is a town that I think is amazing. I love it. It's old. It's rustic. There's so many great things to do and see and amazing restaurants to go to. The prices are half to a third of what Manhattan prices are. So, and I'm not a big drinker. Anybody who knows me is, you know, I'll have a glass of wine, maybe a second glass with a nice Italian, you know, meal or something or steak. But I'm not a big drinker. But when in Rome, when in New Orleans, I can show you a picture.
Hold on 1 second.
And
of course, this is the moment my computer goes to crap. So 30 seconds roughly.
We can show you what is one of the more popular drinks in New Orleans. I could describe it, but it just doesn't do it justice. And the food there is just wonderful, you know, food. I love gumbo. There's a nice little video and a picture of the gumbo I had in a great restaurant called Restaurant Revolution, where they have a quail sitting in the middle of a big bowl, and they pour the liquid gumbo around it, which is delicious, and then you kind of mash the quail down, and they have the seasoning and the spices and the rice and the andouille sausage. There it is. Can you believe that? Inside the quail. So I'm saying to myself, how did they get the sausage, the okra, and all this stuff inside the quail? Did they force feed it?
That's insane.
Just kidding. But the flavor of the recipes down there is just out of this world. So this is the quail. It's called Death by Gumbo at Restaurant Revolution. And, of course, you open that up and it's all delicious. And then there's a seafood gumbo here where you get all the seafood and chunks of everything, and it's just, the flavor is just terrific. You just don't get these flavors anywhere. And I'm convinced that the New Orleansians, people from New Orleans, do not let the seasoning and spices out of New Orleans, so you can't get anywhere else. The next picture.
Next video.
Next video.
Oh, this is.
Now, this is for brunch on Sunday. It's a spectacular Bloody Mary with a blue claw crab on top.
Hold on, I gotta get that loop.
And it's got, soft shell crab, rather, with olives for the eyes. On the right side, there are 6 oysters. The left side, there are 6 shrimp. Spicy beans sticking out of its head. And then little hot red peppers, the peperoncini with onions on it. And it's like a whole meal.
I've never seen it.
But it was delicious. It's absolutely delicious. Of course, I ran for like 45 minutes after that, but it was fun. And do we have the last picture?
We do. My favorite. Hold on. There we go.
So, to all dog lovers throughout the world and beyond, there are now stores in New Orleans on every block. Like there used to be T-shirt places, and there still are T-shirts and Mardi Gras and beads and all this crazy stuff you could buy, everything related to New Orleans. Now there are complete full stores dedicated to socks. You can get socks from any TV show, Star Trek, any movie, Star Wars, Beavis and Butthead. I mean, you can get anything. And of course, for me, I have Zeus, my German Shepherd socks, and Delilah, my St. Bernard socks.
That is awesome.
So I was so thrilled to be able to see that I could have socks of my kids. And I got crawfish socks. I got gumbo socks. It's just, you got to kind of get a little out of control when you're buying all sorts of cool socks. But it was fun.
Someone in the chat said Louisiana has the best food, hands down.
It really, really does. I had redfish, which is delicious. It's also called drum. We had lobster. I think I had gumbo 8 times in like 4 days because I had to try every great restaurant to see who had the best gumbo. And just to go on a little bit about this, Restaurant Revolution was terrific. So that was the first place. The next day for lunch, we went to a place called L'Oceana, another great casual but wonderful food restaurant, and their gumbo was nice and chunky. She had seafood. I had the chicken and the andouille sausage gumbo. And the third place we went to was the Rib House? Rib something. It was in like the Sheraton Hotel. So right on Bourbon Street, not Bourbon, on Royal Street, which is 1 block south, parallel to Bourbon. And Bourbon Street, by the way, is the cleanest street now because they scrub these streets down with these big machines and shooting out this soapy stuff. And New Orleans is a whole different place than it was 40 years ago. But the Rib Room, that's what it was, it was like a dark wood, earthy, old building. You could see Hemingway hanging out in there or some of these people. And they had a gumbo that was just out of this world. It was delicious. It was chunky, but the seasoning was just crazy.
I see pictures of this place. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, they're all beautiful. And there's so many places to go. And if you stay at the Monteleone, which is a beautiful hotel, they have a pool on the roof. And it's where Hemingway used to live and stay, and Faulkner, and I'm trying to think of the other authors. But if you look up the Monteleone, it'll show you 20 different authors that were there and drew inspiration. There's a carousel bar that rotates around. So there's a lot to see and a lot to do. Great museums. But everything's within 5-minute walk if you stay at the Monteleone. And the prices there are crazy. They're just not expensive compared to New York.
Well, I wish we had this conversation when I went to New Orleans about 4 or 5 years ago, because I did not have that experience. I didn't know where to go. I was alone on business, and I walked into a bar on Bourbon Street, and I was like, let's go. And it was one of those bars that must have just been the local spot, because if you've ever seen the movie American Werewolf in London, when he walks into the slaughtered lamb, and everyone looks at him, that's the look. Those are the looks I got. And me and a colleague were like, maybe
local
we'll have
people
one beer.
like, who is this guy coming on down here?
Yeah.
I love the accents. I went to see my friend Guy and Claudia. They live down in the parish or a county a little further away from where New Orleans is, and he's a police detective, and he also runs Homeland Security and does a wonderful job down there. So I've known him, and I go down and see them all the time. And we had a great dinner with them in a place about 25 minutes away from New Orleans proper in the Garden District, which is gorgeous. And the architecture, they're these old buildings with these weeping willow trees with all this moss hanging down, something out of an amazing movie. I think it was Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil with Kevin Spacey. Was a
I know that.
sort of that feel, but great stuff. So I recommend everybody take a weekend trip to New Orleans. I wouldn't go in August because you'll melt and you'll have to change your shirt every 15 or 20 minutes. But other than that, it's a great place to go.
The chat's agreeing with you. We got a couple requests. What's the fried dough they have there?
Oh, beignet. So, not that I would have anything like that all the time. I didn't have it this time. But Cafe du Monde is a very cool little historic place right on the Mississippi area at the base of Jackson Square Park, where behind you, if you're looking at Jackson Square Park, are the big water wheel paddle boats. And to the right, right on the main street, is Cafe du Monde, and it's packed. There's always a group of men and women singing and doing their New Orleans jazz music right there, and that's always authentic. And looking into Jackson Square Park, there's this gorgeous, statue of Andrew Jackson, up on his horse and blah, 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 and walking around. People are doing paintings, and it's just a cool vibe walking around. And then little stores will have ancient bookstores, and they'll have, and one of my favorite places is James H. Cohn. It's an antique store where they have coins and swords from the Civil War and rifles and all sorts of great things that, are authentic things that existed many, many years ago. And they've got stuff even further back, things from ancient Rome. But the antique stores down there are gorgeous. The furniture, and honestly, the prices there are ridiculously low. So one of the places I went into is a furniture store, and they have some cool marble busts and marble, pillars to put your marble bust on and such. And they had an armoire that was gorgeous. I already have an armoire that's antique, but I'm sure I paid more for the armoire that I have. But down there it was like $4,800. But it's a gorgeous, inlaid, old, I think French designed armoire. And $4,800 is nothing, compared to what you'd pay up here. So a lot of people go down there for the antiques. And every antique that you could imagine they have in these stores, chandeliers and fixtures and lights and paintings, and it's just great to walk around and see this stuff.
Crazy. We got someone in the chat said, I am fairly new to your channel, but it looks like we have a lot in common. Regenerative medicine and Louisiana having the best food.
There you go. That's perfect. What more can you want? Got to be healthy. Got to do your exercise. Got to travel too. People, you need to get out and about and do some fun stuff. That's important. Another antique device that I wanted to get is called a tantalus. It's an old-fashioned box, and you would have 3 crystal decanters in it, and then glasses that they would use to pour, little drinks. And then one of them had a drawer with cards in it, playing cards. So people would take this off of a display and put it out there and drink and have cards. The only slight drawback is that the older ones, it's lead crystal, so you can't put alcohol in there and then drink from it. Because, I'm Mr. Anti-Heavy Metal, so...
All for the look.
You have to be very careful, but it's a cool-looking thing. A 200-year-old thing you can put on your shelf is not a bad thing. And down there it was inexpensive, so...
Speaking of the lead, I just found a guy who basically he just goes into convenience stores and he has like the lead tester with like the UV light.
Yeah.
And he just walks in and he just touches all these different things that nope. And it's wild to know, like,
wow.
They do have the small labels like don't eat off of this, but no one realizes it looks fancy. It's a big thing.
Well, for years I've been talking about, we have a great handout, a heavy metal handout. It shows you that aluminum is in chicken, shrimp, is in antiperspirant, pots and pans, aluminum foil, lots of areas, in water. Arsenic is in chicken, shrimp, rice, apples, California wine, among other things. Lead, mercury, and cadmium in lipstick and makeup. And you can go online and look at your makeup brand and scrutinize to see, what's in it. So there's a lot out there that's bad that people are exposed to and just don't realize it. And because the minerals that your body need for your receptors are 2 and 3 plus charge, and so are the heavy metals. If the metals get there, they're displacing the minerals, and now that cell will be damaged, and at some point, will die. That's called apoptosis. So that's why we talk so much about testing blood and urine for metals and getting them out of your body.
Full circle.
One more cool comment. Tomorrow, not so cool for me, by the way, I have to get up at 4 a.m, get ready, dressed, feed the dogs, and then I have to take a car into the city to get on the Excella train at 6 o'clock in the morning to go down to Philly. There's an amazing international Lyme conference in Philly, I think at Temple University. So very big conference. They only do it, here and there, but I want to capture all of the latest and most significant information about Lyme and all the other tick-borne diseases. So I was made aware of this by my great friend, Dr. Berscano, who we interviewed a few weeks ago. And he'll be there. All the doctors that are great will be there. And question and answer sessions and really presentations. I'll get videos. I'll get, the curriculum with the books and everything in it. So it's a 2-day conference. And then, of course, Sunday afternoon, I'll jump on that fast train, get back up here. But can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because whenever I go to a really good, I only go to the really good ones. Whenever I go to a really good conference, my mind is like exploding. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. And, I bring back all sorts of great ideas and new techniques of testing and treatment. So it'd be real good.
And that means Monday show is going to be what we call a banger.
Killer.
All right? Yeah.
Killer. Well, we're down to the end of the program. So we've had a lot of great conversations today. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Thank you so much for your interest in what we talk about and what we do and in keeping yourself healthy. That's the most important thing. Learn about your body, maximize, optimize your health. Certainly give us a call at the office, 516-794-0404, and take a look at the website, drcalapai.com, CALAPAI.com. Also, send us emails. We love your emails. We'll get back to you right away. Bye-bye now. Be well.